So, when we told Mark to take sabbatical, we should have been probably a little more clear. That didn't mean that everybody needs to take sabbatical. I thought it was evident, but it seems like we only have the people who really love Jesus here today. I'm not sure about the rest of those folks, except for Paul. We'll give Paul a break. I mean, he had to go to prison to get out of church, so fine. I guess that's okay. Yeah, right. Yeah. So we're excited to have Paul back. Paul is running into what, probably 52 days, something like that, right? Did I hit it on the number? I think I did. That's not bad, right? So looking forward to having Paul back and happy to see you all today. Today is going to be weird, which some of you think, well, Nick's on stage. That's not real shocking. Because who knows what I might say half the time I'm up here. Today's going to be even stranger because early in the week, Annette had brought up a passage when she was speaking, and it was about the unmerciful servant, and it made me start thinking about things. And when I come up here, most time we're going to talk about justice, grace, those type of things. And I thought, I've said that same message so many times that you need to hear something different today. That's not what you need to hear about how we need to treat people as people no matter who they are and all that. You don't need to hear that today. So we're not going to do that today. But I didn't really know that, and I didn't know where to go from there. I just knew that was kind of what I was thinking at first, and God wiped that out for me. So I wasn't entirely sure what was going to happen. So on Thursday, I was thinking about, as I was prepping for the sermon, the MCU, as you will. And I was thinking about, I'm looking forward to, the Fantastic Four First Steps is coming out. Then I got stuck on this phrase, first steps. And on my walk, I started thinking about steps and first steps. And that led me to thinking about a couple things. So today we're going to talk about what I was thinking about. And I don't really know what's supposed to happen because I also had this overwhelming, I don't even exactly know how to explain this. We'll bring you through my process. So normally I think about something I want to talk about. And then there's little pieces that start filling in. I don't know how to explain it except for I get about 6 ideas. They all start merging. And so by Saturday, they've kind of come close to merge. And then Sunday morning, they all lock in place. And I know exactly what I'm going to say, the order it's going to go in. Most time on the way to church, I've got it all down. And this week, I really felt overwhelmingly that if you're going to talk about faith, you need to not prep. And this is a weird thing. So I am believing today that God's going to give me the right words in the right order. I don't have my little locked in pieces. I've got a lot of pieces all over the place. So this may feel like a chaotic mess, or it might be exactly what was supposed to happen. I don't know. I just know that every time I went to do the process part for this, I felt like I'm not supposed to do this week. So I don't know what that's going to mean. It'll sure be fun because who doesn't love pressure? But let's first pray, and then we'll jump into it. So, God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the folks that are here but not here when they're on vacation or wherever they are. Help them have a great day today, enjoying their family and the beach if somebody happens to be there, Houchins, or whatever. But I just ask to give everybody a restful time today. And then, Lord, I am trusting you're going to give me something to say, and if not, we'll cut this short and have a good discussion. Who knows? But I thank you for that, and thanks for the rain yesterday. You and I pray, amen. Okay, so here we go. Last week, by the way, Nat, great job. I thought it was really nice to be able to interact when you were preaching and talking about some of the things that might hinder our relationship with God and finding God and talking and just pursuing God, I guess. I thought it was really good that we got to interact. I liked it a ton. It was very helpful for me. It made me, this is going to be a confession, it made me open a Bible for the first time in 5 years, probably. It's not that I don't think about the Bible. I get a microphone for some reason here, but I don't read it. And I'll tell you that as a pastor, I don't read. So it was good, and I have some issues with the Bible that we've talked about over time that sometimes make it hard for me to not feel a lot of PTSD. Growing up in a church was always it was tough for me to find the love of God inside of a church and inside of the Bible. And so a lot of that I've been working through a lot of that in therapy. So this week I think I'm okay now that I can pick this up and not get hives. So I did, and I didn't. Let's not get real impressed with Nick. I picked up Philemon. It's like 14 words, right? So it's not a lot of the Bible, but it was still 14 words I wouldn't have read. So that was kind of cool. So first steps, what I was thinking about is Abraham. And I was thinking about this passage that has never really made a ton of sense to me because I don't know how you follow it. And Abraham, if you don't remember, he is the guy who is like the father of Israel, right? The father of our faith. If we want to go way back to the beginning of time, God said, I'm going to take you and bless you. I'm going to bless your entire family. He even meant the Muslim side of the family. He didn't care. He blessed all of the family, which I find to be odd. This is going to be a side note, but Abraham takes matters in his own hands, sleeps with his handmaid, which maybe he had already been doing. We don't know that. Anyway, they have a baby. Hagar walks away with her baby, feeling distraught, despondent, and God says, no, the blessing of Abraham that I said I'd make your people like the sands of the earth applies to you too. Which you start thinking about the fact that God decided to bless the Muslim faith, and then you say, what do I do with that, right? Especially if we go traditionally the way we've taught in churches. God didn't just bless the Christian angle, he also blessed the Muslim angle, and I don't know what to do with that. But that's a different sermon for a different day. So Abraham, that's the guy. Abraham was told by God to go to a land where I'll show you, right? So what did it require? It requires the first step. So Nick, we're going to pick on you today. So if I were to tell you that I'm going to completely bless you, and I told you, go to a land where I show you, which direction would you start walking?
Probably south.
Cool. Miles?
I'd probably start spinning in circles.
Okay. Summer, what direction would you choose?
Whichever way you told me to go.
Okay. How would you know I told you?
You just said you did.
I just said go somewhere I'll show you. I didn't say which way to start. I just said go somewhere I'll show you.
Probably just feel it out. Get the vibes.
Vibes, okay. Alicia, do you have an answer?
No, I would have analysis paralysis and keep my mind about right there.
Right. So what's kind of interesting is that Abraham gets this message from God to go to a land that I'll show you, and I'm going to give you this land. It's a big deal. Nick starts going south, which is great. I would probably go north. God never said which way to go. So I was thinking about, so what do you do with this, right? So you know that you have a feeling anyway that God told you I'm going to do this for you. And you start walking, and I think everybody in this room would choose one of multiple directions because there's a lot of different directions you could choose. Any of them could be valid. We don't know that. And then how long, Nick, do you think it would take you to get to this place?
Just walk till there was water in a village, maybe.
Okay, so you would choose a watering village. And now what would you do? Like, how would you think to yourself, well, I think now's the time that I should stop. How would you know it was the land that I was showing you?
I would have a gut feeling, and then I would question it forever if that was really God or my imagination when I'm tired of walking.
Right. Right. That's exactly what I was thinking. Was that it's interesting. So Abraham obeys by walking some direction he chooses. He walks for however long he thinks God says to go, and then he decides the land that he lands in is the place where God wanted him to go. I don't know how else it could have been done. And I started thinking about the character of God. So God told him to go do something. Right? He said, go do this. Abraham has faith and does it. He takes his whole family and they just start walking someplace because he decided God must have told him that direction. I don't know how else you do that. Like, he has to work through in his head, did God really say that, or did I just choose southwest? Who knows? He has to decide, am I just tired of walking and this is good enough, or is this really the place God wants me to be? We don't know. He doesn't know. Like in that set, he probably wonders all the time, was this the right place? Is it the right move? And I think the answer is yes. I think the answer was yes, no matter which direction he chose. No matter how far he walked, no matter where he stopped, I think that would have been the land God chose. Because I don't think that God was trying to give him something specific. I think God was trying to say, do you trust me? And you guys know that I like story. You know, when I'm up here, we talk about Star Wars. We talk about The Matrix. I probably need to update some of my movies, right? We talk about Harry Potter. We talk about some of the MCU. These are the things we talk about when I come up here a lot of times. And the reason I talk about those is so many times in those stories, we get to see the hand of God in a way that's very tangible because we've all seen it with our eyes. We don't just get to hear about it from a Bible standpoint. We get to see it and say, ah, okay, I see what that looks like. So, what I want to talk about today is interactive faith. Not just faith, like I believe something, but faith that's interactive, that happens on a day-to-day basis, where you believe and then you act, right? Abraham believed something and then he did something about what he believed. And I want to start with our passage, and then we'll kind of start talking about people. People that some of you know from movies, people from the Bible. But we're going to start in James. It's going to be James 2:14 through 19. And this is what it says. I chose it in the Message because the Message sometimes just says things really punchy, and I like it. And you don't have to try to translate what those words mean that we don't use today. So here's what it says. It says, "What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister was without clothes and daily food. If one of you, well, this doesn't even look like the Message at all. It says it is, though. All right. If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? It's the same way faith by itself, if not accompanied by action, is dead. Some will say, 'You have faith, I have deeds.' And I'll say, 'Show me your faith without deeds, and I'll show you my faith by my deeds.' You believe there's one God, good. Even the demons believe that and shudder." So, faith is more than just believing. Faith has to have action. It's good that you came here today. It's good that you believe that there's a God. That's cool. But if you don't do anything about it, if you don't take any active steps about what you say you believe, it's worthless, is what this passage is saying. Faith requires action. It requires movement on your part. So, we think about the Matrix. Remember, we have Neo. Neo is presented with this idea that maybe life isn't what Neo thinks it is. And he has a choice. Do I take a red pill? Do I take a blue pill? Take the blue pill, I go back to sleep, everything's going to be fine. Take that red pill and everything changes. So he's stuck with a choice right away. Do I believe? And then if I believe, what action will I take? And so what we see is Neo grabs that red pill and things do change. It's a small step. It's a baby step. It's not a big ask. Because what happens if he's wrong? Not a whole lot, but it's a small thing. Morpheus provides him one small idea. He takes it. And what I love about this idea is that faith doesn't always require big things. Sometimes faith is just taking that first step to say, okay, I'm going to believe this and see what happens. So Neo takes the red pill. And what we see over time is that Neo learns something about this new reality. Neo is presented with ideas that are not quite as simple as taking a blue pill and red pill. You remember the scene where he's standing on the skyscrapers. And he's looking across this massive gap. Morpheus has jumped over. What faith is what Neo has to do right there. Neo has to believe, I said I believe this. I said I believe in the blue pill and that things are different. But now I have to go jump over these skyscrapers to get to Morpheus. If he doesn't do it, he believes, but he doesn't learn anything. He can say, I believe that this will happen, but without the action of running and jumping and falling on his face, in this case, it doesn't mean anything. And without Neo taking that first step of faith, he doesn't get to be the person he becomes. And that story clearly ripped off right from the Bible. It's Peter walking on water, right? What else could it be? Peter sees Jesus on the water, says, well, if the master's doing it, I want to do it. Because he wanted to be like Jesus. So what does Peter do? Peter has to decide, I'm going to take that first step of faith. Peter had been on boats his whole life. He knows this is not going to work. He knows stepping out of that boat is not going to keep him above water. He's going to go down. He knows it. But he also knows that if he wants something bigger, if he wants something more, he has to take a step of faith. So what does he do? He steps out of the boat and he doesn't sink. He gets a few steps in, he sinks, just like Neo hit the ground on the skyscrapers, right? But what we know about Peter is those first little acts of faith lead to the person he becomes. It's small little steps. If Peter doesn't take a small little step, he never learns who God really is. He never learns about faith. And all of these things are leading to something. We see it with Luke Skywalker. Luke has presented with this idea that perhaps there's more than his little life in the desert. Perhaps when Obi-Wan comes to see him, that he does have a place to play in this world, and he has a role to play in it. He's on the Millennium Falcon, taking his first adventure, and they're in this little game room, and Chewbacca and R2 are playing chess, and Obi-Wan says, let's practice. And so he gives him this blast helmet, and he's supposed to block these laser shots with his lightsaber, and he can't do it, but he tries. Right? He knows I can't see these things, I'm blinded, but I'm going to try. So he tries. Takes a little step of faith that maybe the Force is real. It's a little step. If Luke doesn't do that, when we get to the end of the movie, and he has to blow up the Death Star with those shots, and his targeting computer is not working, he doesn't blow up the Death Star because the targeting computer wasn't going to work. The only thing that would work is faith in the Force, right? He had to have faith that this is a real thing. And those baby steps of the blast helmet lead to a bigger action of trusting in a risky situation that this is what's supposed to happen. First steps, right? Luke takes his first steps into this world of faith to matter. And what about Harry Potter? Harry Potter's an orphan boy. His parents have died. He lives in this little cupboard being abused by family members. And yet, he gets presented with this crazy idea that maybe he is more. Maybe there's more to the story. If Harry doesn't exercise faith, if he doesn't take a step in faith into the unknown, Harry remains an orphan boy in a cupboard. Instead, he takes a step into the unknown and becomes Harry Potter, the only one that could have killed Voldemort. The whole story falls apart without a first step of faith by Harry. And this goes on and on and on. We have the widow, right? We have the widow who Elijah comes into town. They have no money left. She thinks they're going to die. She's got a little bit of oil, a little bit of flour. And he says to her, make me a cake first. Like, screw your little kid. I'm hungry. Make me the cake first. And I don't know how she felt, except for, oh, what's one more meal? I mean, we're going to die tomorrow anyway. But she has nothing left to lose. Here's this man of God who says, do this. I got nothing left. I'm going to take a step of faith. And then we hear the story that somehow that jar never runs out. That flour doesn't run out. That oil doesn't run out. And she lives. So if any of these characters just mentally assent, right, if they just say, yes, I believe that something has to happen, nothing happens to any of these stories unless they take a first step of faith. Faith requires action. I think to me, a lot of times, I don't take the first step, but I say that I believe. There's been a few times in our life where Rochelle and I have decided to take the first step. One of them, and I think Rochelle would probably be able to tell you, and you might be able to tell you because I've heard this story numerous times. In the year 2000, our church had a building campaign. And we thought, we're not givers. We're givers occasionally. Sometimes we'd write a check. And do not read this as this is about money, but sometimes money is a good way to look at a picture and see how it worked, right? So Rochelle and I sometimes would give money to the church. Most of the time would not give money to the church. All I can say is that we both felt like we need to stop doing it this way. I think we both felt like it's not really our money in the first place. If we really believe that, we need to just give. So back in 2000, we made the decision that we would just give. And I don't think we've missed a week since. if I remember right. Rochelle, do you think we've missed a week? I don't think we have. But what happened the first week is what was key. We made a decision early in that week that we were going to start tithing. And that week, for whatever reason, we probably had too much fun going to restaurants or something. We didn't have any money anyway, I know that. And we had a bill due, and it was either pay this tithe that we said we'd do, that we felt God told us to do, or pay this bill. We never paid bills late. That was how it went. We just never did that. But I really felt overwhelmingly that day that God was saying, well, are you going to do what you said or not? Like, you going to act in faith, or are you just going to do what you normally do and take care of yourself? We wrote the check. And knowing that we couldn't pay the bill. Being older now, I realize being 4 days late on a bill wouldn't have been a big deal at all, but I didn't know that back then. So we write this check, and what happens that week? Rochelle gets a $1,000 bonus out of the blue. I don't want you to hear that God just decides to shower you with money if you decide to give it away. That's not the message here. The message is that we took a small step of faith, then God decided to bless it right away, that's really super cool. But what it really, the message is that about 5 years later, I'd be playing football. And, I'm a good quarterback. I can throw. And I'm also smart. So don't even try to run something against me because I'll figure it out. I'm bright. But I had a buddy who's a ridiculously good receiver. We could never play together because every time we played together, I would just throw it, he'd run underneath it. It was easy wins every time. So we never got to play together. So we're playing pickup ball for fun. He's on one team, I'm on the other. I decide, so Randy can't cover me and get to the quarterback at the same time. So I'm going to let somebody else throw, and then he's going to have to decide, do I cover Nick or do I go after the quarterback? I don't know, and I'm going to try to outsmart him. Randy thought, well, I can't cover Nick and get to the quarterback. I'm just going to push Nick over so it doesn't matter, which he could do. I snap the ball. Randy charges, hits me in my head. Runs my head back into my neck. And I go to the ground. And, I was dizzy for sure. But my neck hurt pretty bad. And, my friends are making jokes about how many fingers do you see, all the standard stuff when somebody has a broken neck. And I didn't know I had a broken neck, but that's what us guys do with each other. So I got back up. It's like, well, I probably can keep playing. So played that week. Played for the next 6 weeks. My neck did not get better. It hurt. It kept hurting. I could not turn it past like that far, basically. But I turned it enough to play football because, important stuff. So I go to the doctor, and the doctor takes an x-ray of my neck because I'm a little worried at this point. And your C3 and C4 vertebrae, for lack of a better term, and thankfully our doctor's not here today, look a little like this when they're correct. They line up. Mine did not line up. Mine was more like this. And the doctor said, no more football. Let's stop that right now. Your neck is definitely broken. He was a little panicky. And I could tell he was a little panicky about my playing and stuff. And I didn't know what to do with that. But I did happen to be reading in the Bible. That year I decided to read through the Bible. And I just happened to be at this passage about the lady with the issue of blood. And I don't know how to describe this except for to say when I got to the passage, and the story kind of goes like this. There's this woman who has this issue of blood. We really don't know what that means today. I'm guessing kept bleeding. That seems likely, or they'd have called it something different. She sees Jesus in this crowd, tons and tons of people in the crowd. And she thinks to herself, if I could just go touch his robe, I would be healed. He never told her that. He never said to her, this is what's going to happen. She just kind of decided, this is the kind of healing I'm going to go get from this guy who heals people. So she's trying to fight her way through the crowd, which she's not technically allowed to do. Blood was a big deal for the Jews, and so she can't go touch a priest. That's not okay. She didn't care. She's going to go get fixed. So she runs as much as she can through that crowd, touches just his robe, and is healed. He knows. Cool thing, gets healed. All I can tell you is I read that story, and then the words that came to my head is, Nick, why are you different than the woman? I didn't come from a church who believed in healing. They said they did. They would say, yeah, we'll pray for you. God will take care of that. Clearly, they did not believe God was going to take care of anything. except through medical practices. Good people, but that's not something they believed. So it wasn't like it was a standard thing for me to already believe this. I didn't necessarily believe this. I believed it was in theory possible. Like I mentally assented to the idea that God could do that if he wanted to. But I heard as plain as day in my head anyway, why are you different from the woman? Why don't you just ask? So I did. The next day I had another follow-up appointment, right? So I was going to end up going and getting an MRI and a CAT scan and a new x-ray of my neck. So that night, it was Saturday night I prayed that. Sunday morning, went to church. Sunday night I told all the people in the youth group, and Opal was there back in the day. And they weren't people who believed this necessarily, but I just said, here, this is what I think happened. I think what I'm supposed to have you guys do is touch my neck and pray. Will you do it? They're like, sure. So they all did it. Next day I go, there's nothing wrong with me. Neck is back to normal. Everything's fine. I can't explain that. This isn't the story where you knew a friend of someone who had this happen to him. It happened to me. I don't know what to say. What I do wonder is when we took that first step of giving the money, when we took that baby step of saying, we're going to trust you, God, that you can handle this, if that is what drove me to say, well, we trusted God in the past. He's shown himself to be faithful with what he says he's going to do. Is this not the same thing? I don't know. I'd love to tell you, but what I think is that faith leads to knowing God better. So when you take that first baby step of faith, it's a couple things, right? For Abraham, I almost feel like God was saying, I'm good. I'm a good God. I'm going to take care of you. I don't know what direction you're going to start off. I don't know how long you think I'm going to tell you to walk. I don't even know where you think you're going to stop. You'll probably just choose something that looks pretty. I don't know. I do know that I just wanted you to trust me. And no matter where you go, I'm going to make it that cool land. I think the whole point of that was for God to just say, I'm good. I want you to know me better. I think with my neck, I think faith in something small just led to more faith in something big. God used faith to give me more faith. And I think that faith leads to bigger things. So I think what I wanted to talk about with you guys specifically today is last week we talked about getting to know God better. But today I want to talk about how do we get to know God better. I want to talk about where are the places God are pushing you in faith to grow to. What are some of your stories? I don't want this practice of religion that we do to just be what we do on Sundays. You know, I was thinking through, and I'm not sure if we're going to have discussion today or next week. Either way, next week we're going to do testimony time, and maybe we'll talk about this. I didn't really know how long this was going to go because I didn't plan for it. But a couple things I was thinking about is that, you know, we have to have faith as a church. We have to start thinking through where we're going. There is it's a given that we are not going to be in this space. And that's a matter of how long? 3 months? 4 months? We've been asking God to give us a place where we can put kids again. We've been asking God to give us a place that we can afford. The math doesn't work. I was going to tell you, the math doesn't work at all. We can't pay for this. We can pay enough. We give enough to make sure the leeches have a living wage most of the time. We pay rent on time, I think all the time now, thanks to Skeletones. That's great. But we don't have a place for kids. And we think that our location is hindering us from the people finding us because it's very hard to find us. So we think God has a plan for us. What I was thinking through last week that was kind of cool, and band, I meant to mention you too. I was talking about the talent that I see in this room with Annette. Annette, that was, again, fantastic. Miles, so good. So Miles and Annette spoke 2 of the last 3 weeks. Christy spoke the week before that. So good. In a church this size, there should not be this many people who can communicate at the level that we have communicators. Mark is ridiculous, right? We get to listen to a pastor who's ridiculous all the time. we are pretty blessed with somebody who knows how to stand up here and be funny and all the things he knows how to do, and point us towards God. So when I look at it from the outside, I look and say that's cool. Then I look at a band that probably 6 months ago was just kind of doing their thing, and in the last 5 months has decided they're gonna make this be something on purpose. So you got Rochelle and Nick and Miles and Kevin and Kristen. I know it's like I'm missing somebody, right? And you're like, just sit right in front of me. I'll forget you for sure. Kristen. And I think it's such a cool thing to see that, and that you're leading in worship. That half of our church is involved in the worship team. Like this church is full of a team that's ready to serve and do. We're not so much full of people to serve and do things with. I should probably make sure I say not just do. So it's an interesting thing that God has built a really strong team here. Man, one of our team members is in prison. And he's doing the things he's supposed to do there. Such a cool thing. I don't think that, so for me, when I look at that evidence, I don't think God's done with us. Like, I think what God is doing is building a strong core of people who are there. Alicia, you and Kevin have been so faithful in making sure this place stays the way it's supposed to be. Dagmar, ridiculous coffee program. It's amazing, right? So, like, you're having impact in your community. It's really hard for me to look around and not say that everybody here is doing something. Like everybody here is having an impact. So when I see that from the outside, I have faith that God is building a team of people who has something better and different for. I don't know what that is, but here's some things it could be, right? We have a whole community of people who've been very conservative, and they love Jesus. They don't always love their neighbor. This church loves our neighbor, whether our neighbor is queer, a minority. Like, we love our neighbors. That matters to us. And I was thinking through, man, what a gap in the world where churches who have been homes for people tell their people because their kid is queer that we're not going to be okay with that here. And it's not that they're booting them out of church. They're just kind of saying, hey, your kid's going to have to quit being queer to really be involved here. Where's their home? Their home is New Vintage. That's a safe landing place for people who need to find grace and peace and safety. That's what we are. We've been designed to be a safe place for people. For people who, like me, watched the Christian evangelical response to COVID and to Donald Trump and couldn't handle it. Like, I was in a lot of bad shape when COVID started. And I watched Christians demand their rights and shake their fist at our governor and everybody else and tell Whitmer that she was a bitch and all those things that I didn't believe Christians would do to people. And this isn't political. This is just about loving your neighbor. When I see the response to President Trump, and I don't care about his ideas. Presidents all have ideas, right? Like whether it was going to be President Harris, President Trump, President Clinton, President Bush, doesn't make any difference. They all have different ideas. They do different things. My biggest response to that is the Christians' absolute worship of Donald Trump. It doesn't matter what he does. And that's scary to me. There's a group of people who've been affected that in the church who want nothing to do with our God because of our worship of a man. They need somewhere safe to be. And I want to make sure you hear this. This is not political. This is about the fact that people need something that's real. They need something that loves their neighbor. Because when it all comes down, this isn't necessarily about politics. It's not about the individual beliefs of a person. It's about a God who's crazy about them. And when we block the path by demanding people believe certain things, about abortion, about queer people, about people who come over from other countries. When we have no empathy, we block the doors of heaven to people. So what does that mean? How do we tie this all together? It means that you guys have baby steps of faith you need to take. I don't know what they are. I know that God knows what they are. Some of the things could be inviting your neighbor to church, right? One of the ways we simplistically pay for a building is having more people in the building. So inviting people you know to a safe place is probably a piece of faith you could act on. Maybe you're not a giver. Maybe you've never been a giver. Maybe that's something that you decide God is telling you to do and you take a step of faith there. I will say for me, it has not gone anything but fantastically. But that's not a promise. I don't know what your step of faith is, man. Maybe it's just like Annette said last week. Maybe it's just taking that step to say, I want to know God on a personal level, not just on a I know about God level. Because knowing about God is not the same thing as knowing God. I've known about God for a lot of my life. I'm really good about knowing about God. I'm not always good about knowing God. There is a difference. Go back and listen to Annette's sermon if you need to. I'm not sure what it is, but I do know when I see a team that's being built for something. And it's really hard for me to think that's not what I saw here. We've got a core of good players. We just do. So my challenge to you this week is to figure out, what are the baby steps? What are my first steps? What do I do to move forward to a bigger faith? To see what God has in store? It's not a safe thing, right? None of this is safe to do these things. But it's also not boring. Because when you take those first baby steps of faith, you can be assured God has bigger steps to take. And that life gets you a couple things. One, it gets you uncertainty, right? That's always a little scary. Number two, you get to see a tangible God. How often do we talk about God in an ethereal sense but never see tangible God? Faith allows you to see a tangible God. That becomes pretty fun. So I'm challenging you all this week. Ask God, what is that step of faith? We need to take our faith from words to deeds. Do something about it. I don't know what it's going to be.